Hello, hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon. So it is 12 noon. So today here we meet again for the MAIC Virtual Open Day, and we brought to you another interesting topic, okay, to be discussed. And I am not alone today. We bring you a very special, distinguished panel to discuss on a very interesting topic that can open our eyes about professionalism, which is integrity. And also in conjunction with the integrity thematic month of our event and program for the Masa Avenue International College. Okay, let me introduce myself first before we begin on the topic. I'm Nita Yusni Muhammad Idris. Okay, people address me as Miss Nita. I'm the acting head of School of Business and Accountancy, as well as the program coordinator for the business program, as well as accounting. All right, I'm not going to talk about me much. Okay, we are focusing on the panel. All right, so we are very much happy and excited. Okay, to welcome you, our special speaker today is Miss Rilla Amrullah. Hi, Miss Rilla. Welcome to our talk today. How are you?
Hi, Miss Nita, and hi everyone. I'm doing really great here in Shalang.
All right. All right. To start, Miss Rilla, we especially brought Miss Rilla. She's from Omnilytics. So I know that some of you may wonder what is Omnilytic. Olympic, we do not know. So Miss Rilla may want to share what is actually Omnilytic and what kind of service or operation that does Omnilytics offer. So she's the Associate Director of People and Operations. All right. So before we begin to our topic to discuss, so Ms. Rila, would you like to share a brief of your, your job scope and what is
Mm,
actually Omnilytics company? Please, Ms. Rila.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, so Omnilytics is really one of the technology startup company. We are based predominantly in Malaysia, although we do have employees all over the world. Currently, our technology is servicing the retail industry. So what we do is provide a data platform to provide our clients with more market visibility in terms of like what's happening in the retail space, and they can easily use our data to make more real time and data driven decisions making. So yeah, so that's Omnilytics, and my role in Omnilytics as a team member in the people and operations team is really to take care of the people, like the title in my role. But if I were to simplify my role, I have like only two missions. So one is like I want to create a high performing team, and I want to achieve that through through delivering an amazing employee experience. So if I achieve those, then I can, be rest assured that the interest of the company is protected and interest of the customers is protected. Yeah.
Mhm. All right, such an interesting job scope. The focus is on how do you provide high performance of workforce, which also lead to the integrity of the business as well as the people inside the organization. All right,
Yeah.
Miss Rila. So this month is a thematic month for our college as well as for the environment. Okay, people always talk about how to be ethical in business conduct. How do you show your moral values and moral perspective toward your conduct? But also inside of the elements of ethics and moral is integrity. Okay, so people always talk about in simple term, integrity is about being honest or accountability. So by right, from the definition of the theoretical perspective of integrity is this: how do you comply? That means adherence to the code of practice. So including how do you view moral and ethics in your business, not only in terms of the people, but also how do you ensure that the business that you're conducting is in line with the vision, goal, and also your corporate value. So this is where the part of human resource comes together, right, Miss Rila?
Yeah.
But one issue
Mm,
that we always face is from the employee's perspective. Okay, there is one factor that can trigger about the integrity issue is the trust issue. Okay, we
mm,
all have this trust issue in terms of, is it the management that can be trusted? How the management, how human resource provide, development of our career, how honest, how transparent is the company towards the welfare and towards the well-being of the employees. So, Ms. Rilla, according to your opinion, what are the
Hmm.
factors? Okay, what are the factors that can influence or trigger the trust issue that create a sense of low integrity in the company?
Hmm. I guess it boils down to you mentioned trust itself, right? So in order to trust within a company or in any organization, right, you need to have like an environment that can actually advocate for trust to be
Yes,
built
correct.
upon. Because it's not something that you switch on. It's like not a light switch where you switch on, oh, that's trust, and you switch off, then there's no more trust. So it's something that you need to build from day one and continue building. So what I meant by an environment where it can foster trust building, you actually need to create a safe environment where you welcome debate, welcome differentiating opinions. And you have to be clear in terms of how you treat differently cases differently. So there are mistakes, there are misconduct, but there need to be different type of approach in terms of like how do you address mistake and how do you address misconduct. I think that would definitely play a factor in terms of like whether it triggers or whether it's foster trust. In terms of, for example, if I take mistakes, for example, right? So a lot of like organizations, they have this blame culture where when somebody's mistake, like, okay, the first question is like, okay, who did it? Why did you did it? Things like that, right? But if I were to take Omnilytics as an example, so we actually tell our employee during our new employee orientation and even all the senior management those days, one of the great features that you can have is our mistakes. So instead of like asking, okay, why did you did this, or okay, who did this, like so you can like point finger, right? The first question we usually ask, right, is okay, through this mistake, what have you learned, and what could you do to prevent it from happening again? So that's how you should treat mistakes. That's how you can gain trust from the employee, and in return, you foster integrity as well, because then you will create like an environment where employees feel like, oh, it's okay for me to make mistake, I won't get blamed, I won't get punished, right? Different case for misconduct, because misconduct is like you intentionally do something that is not morally right, and that it's not morally right. So that's how you address that through any needed consequences, but it shouldn't punish mistakes. So I guess that's how you build trust. And another factor that I can share is communicating about expectations. So I guess like both employers and employees have their own expectation, but I don't think it it being communicated enough. And even if it's the frequency is there, sometimes it's not clear enough, and there's a lot of like, ambiguity. So I think yeah, communication around expectations needs to be more transparent and more frequent.
So, in the sense that integrity is about trusting one another, and then also how do you set the expectations? Okay, that what do you expect that employees would like to know, and
Hmm.
also what do you think that employees have to know? Okay, that is the difference between that, right, Miss Rila?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
for the viewers, all right, thank you for joining us today. All right, you can see that quite a good response from the viewers. So any questions, any views that you would like to share, please feel free, you can ask, so that Miss Rila can give some point of views of our topic today. Okay, Miss Rila, another point is that we can see, when you talk about integrity, is always about the rule of book, or people follow the book. That means
Right.
book people. But
Right.
if you see in the real practice, okay, not all the things that we have to base on, okay, follow this book, follow this manual, follow this, okay,
Yep.
because you have to also adopt to the, the environment as well as the real, situation that we are facing now.
Mm.
Okay, so it is important for the management, for the managers, not only to the employees. Like you said just now, the support. Integrity is also about supporting from the management to ensure that how we, as the organizational setting, should practice this, integrity. So
Mm.
that means when you talk about ethics, Okay, integrity is one part of the ethical component is to avoid any illegal issues, try
Mm.
to eliminate as possible all the illegal or immoral kind of activities or practice.
Right.
And you use this integrity approach is not only based on what is in the book, okay, what
Correct.
is in the practice from the book. So it is on how we want to apply so that employees have the trust, and
Mm.
also how do the HR team to come up with the the set of conduct and also code of practice. Okay,
Mm.
from your views, okay, why is it important for the organization to practice and then to to have you call that effective integrity at the organization? Why is it important to have this integrity, Ms. Rilla?
Mm. I guess you want to drive behaviors from everyone, right, within the entire organization, right? You want to drive for the right behavior. So you have to set up what is your idealistic values, and then assess what is actually the practice values. So within the company, if you look on, there's a research in terms of what company usually put in terms of their list of core values, right? And I think around, if I'm not mistaken, around 92% of companies have the word integrity in their core
Yeah.
values, right? So you can have like whatever 5 to 11 core values. There's always like this word integrity. So the fact that companies feels the need to have this in their list of core values is saying something. So means that what we aim by having this in like actually documented in the core values, in employee handbook, in whatever our SOP or processes, right, is again like to drive for the behavior. But I think, like you mentioned, right, so it's actually like you can have whatever processes, it's actually what the individual is driving for. Firstly, if I take Enron, for example, so Enron is one of the companies, one of the biggest company, right, in the whole
Yes.
world, and they have the word integrity as their core value. But what happened? Why did they have like one of the biggest integrity scandal throughout the history, right?
Yeah.
So it boils down to the individual. So I guess like what I'm trying to say is right, you can put whatever processes, you can put like in terms of like okay, for example, SOP for procurement, you can have those, but that is only to serve as like more of a guidance. Because if you put too many rules, put too many SOPs, it kind of like slows you down, and which is something that you don't want because you're doing business, so you want to have speed as
Yeah.
well. So we set up this SOP, we have processes, we have all these documents. The outcome is to provide more clear guidance, but the end goal, the bigger why is we want to ensure the companies and also the customers' interests are always protected and it's always put first. So that's why we have this.
All right.
Yeah, set up. Yeah.
So that means that it is not based on what you have to rely on the policy, and
Mm,
how do you think that you have to follow based on what is actually 100% on the book. That
right.
every time when we work, especially for the new employees, when they come for the newcomers, they go for the
Mm,
orientation. Okay, this is what we have in the book. Okay,
right.
from we have to practice. Okay, like you said, a good example is by the Enron, and this is what normally we
Mm,
as lecturers, especially those who are teaching for management based, human resource based, we use this Enron as a good example. Like, you have developed such a very strong name, and then high profile companies, but it collapsed within a second because of the issue internal part where integrity
correct.
is not there. That means
Yeah.
you only use it as like, like Ms. Rilla, what you said, 90% of the companies use the word integrity in their policy, in their
Mm,
corporate culture. We also, some management part, whenever we have this meeting, okay, we practice integrity, and then you also claim during the press release where you also practice integrity. But how true is that? Is
yep.
far beyond the concept is that. Okay, so from this question we also need to ensure that integrity should be practiced not only with the employees, not only on certain part. That means, oh, you are employee, you have to
Mm,
practice integrity, we just provide the rules. Okay, so it is not only what you believe. Okay, from the HR perspective as well, plays the part on to fostering and also supporting, okay, the role of integrity to be in the soul, in the mind, and then in the practice of each of the individual men and women in that organization. Okay,
Right.
and then in order for that, because you know that when you have to create that sense of discipline, it is difficult, right, Miss Rilla? So that's how human resource and the management have to play the part on how do you develop a very strong cohesive work culture about integrity. So from the question just now, we go to the next question. How do you think that an organization should foster or create or even build a strong cohesive work culture that inculcate that supporting okay integrity is what we need to practice, not only among the employees, but how do you think that human resource, the management itself, fostering this work culture in terms of integrity in our organization itself?
The short answer to that is actually to hire the right people.
Mm,
But in order to hire the right people, it's very hard. How do
yeah,
you, I guess, like, how do you, in the initial stage of hiring process, right? How do you know that person's right fit? So we do have, like, for example, HR have, that's why we have like multiple stage of interviews, and like with different stakeholders. So there are, a panel who assess in terms of more the technical knowledge, more of the technical competencies, right? And then like whatever soft competencies that you need to deliver that role. But I believe like what HR can also do is to set up an interview around, culture fit. How would they behave, in a specific situations that kind of like allow you to gauge how that person is. Because personally, I implemented the competency-based interview method. So I use this method because past behaviors dictates future behaviors as well. So I
true.
would ask questions around, have you ever been in a conflict with a team? Tell me about that time. What was the situation? What did you do to resolve? And what was the result after that? So question around how did they approach conflict? How has they like previously voiced out if there's something bothering them at work? How would
Yeah,
they treat in terms of like, oh, somebody come to them in terms of like having a different opinion? So question around this, although to other companies or to other organizations, they might seem like, oh, very soft, very, airy fairy, but I place so much like great importance in terms of having these kind of interviews in the
true.
first place, because we want to want to avoid hiring mistake. We want to hire the right people, and this is even more especially important when you are hiring the senior management, because if you think about what drives a culture within a team, right, it's not HR that's driving it. I mean, like HR can put out like whatever, a nice set of core values. This is a core values, and then we create like, team bonding
Yes,
experience. We create new employee orientation. We have like, multiple activities. But if you think about like who's actually driving it, who's actually like champion cultures, right? It's actually the senior management, because people
true.
like across the company, across the team, will look up to the senior leadership, right? So
Mm,
it has to be hand in hand. It's not only HR, it's HR plus the senior leadership. Because if it's just HR, right, people will look, oh, it's just another thing that HR put out. Like I don't
yeah,
see my team doing it. I don't see this
true.
like my leader, walk the talk. So I think like that's very important as well.
Mm-hmm.
If not even more important, because um, from my observation, one of the most I think like if I look at the companies who are successful in terms of driving the culture that they want, is actually if I can share, there's one company, startup company that I met before. They didn't have a HR person previously when I talked to the co-founder, but they have great company values. Why? Because the co-founder and the founding team have like this common set of values and norms that they expect from the people, right? So it kind of like naturally and organically follow. So you don't even have to set up like a document of some sort to drive your said behavior or culture. So in essence, you need to have like a strong leadership team who can walk the talk, who can be the agent of the values that you want to create. And HR works closely in terms of to make sure that that can happen. We can build the foundation of the culture, but really, again, like I mentioned, you need to have like strong leadership team. Otherwise, it will fail.
Yeah, I like one term that you have mentioned just now, leadership is not only about leading but walk the talk. That is
Correct.
a very good term that we need to practice nowadays, especially in our very, aggressive
Mm,
environment, constantly and dynamic environment where it's not only about how to sustain and then how to ensure that your business is viable as and
correct.
also adapting to the changing environment, but walk the talk. So it's not only
Mm,
about how do you manage people. Okay, this is not only how do you instruct, but walk the talk means what you say is it is what you preach. So, but not all
correct.
companies have that kind of leadership skill in the sense that, okay, you claim that
Yeah,
I'm a leader, but then whatever that you say, okay, no, we have to do this, no, okay, it's a good one,
yeah.
walk the talk, okay. That means you have to practice that. Even we as a lecturers as well, we
Mm,
think that we have, teaching students in such a way that okay we are good, but yes we have to apply this walk the talk not only in terms of the leadership skill, but how do you manage your students, how do you
correct.
encourage your people. Okay, all right.
Correct.
So when you talk about how do you encourage the ethical work culture or integrity approach of work culture, it is important that, like you said, Miss Rilla, we have to practice what you have,
Mm,
plan. How do you formulate the vision, the strong culture, even when you talk about ethics. Okay, this is the next part. You know that employees they have options nowadays, right? Meaning if they see that, for example, I'm working in the one company, and then after sometimes in that company, I found that where is my point? What is my direction? Where should I go? What has
mm,
the management do for me? What is my development of the career? So they have many options. So one
correct.
word of integrity is to be authentic. That means to be open, practice
Mm,
openness. You have to be having a very high quality of, honesty. Okay,
mm,
in such a way that we go back to the first question, trust issue, trustworthy from the employees. So they have options. If they think that, okay, my company, like what in the case of Enron, of course they have choice. If you know
mm,
that the company is not able or do not practice what they have, said or planned, okay, I go somewhere else. So
right.
from here, we need to come up with a good strategies, but
Mm,
not just in terms of written strategy. So what do you think that HR and also working together with the management, what are
mm,
the strategies or guidelines that you think that to have openness and integrity among the employees so that they can have confidence and
mm,
a high good of trustworthy to the company? What are the strategies?
mm. So I'm going to relate back to what I shared earlier, right? So, like I mentioned, my mission in Omnilytics is to build a high performing team through amazing employee experience. So, I have to like boil down like what does it means by having an amazing employee experience, because that's like very subjective, right? So I actually have a few metrics in terms of how I quantify that. But in essence, what I'm trying to drive for is actually, especially when you work with a startup company. So startup company, right? We have very limited resource compared to our
Yeah.
competitor. Say for example, we want to target, the cream of the cream, like those like high flying graduates, right? But we are competing against MNCs,
Yes.
GLC, who can
True,
provide
true.
like months of bonus, cushy job, very stable, and great benefits, right? So at a startup company, what can you offer? You don't have that, right? You don't
Yeah.
have an infinite amount of money to support like the great kind of like benefits you can provide.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to like, okay, what is our unique selling point as an employer? So that's how I personally view my role as the lead of the people function in Omnilytics. I run it as if I'm running my own business. So I always constantly thinking, and when I strategize, right? Okay, what is our unique selling point as an employer? What should
Yeah.
be our employer branding as an employer? What should be
Mm-hmm.
our even I think of like our recruitment process as a sales process. So
Yeah.
I
True.
think how we strategize is like thinking of what is our unique selling point. Like you mentioned, right? Employees can
Mm-hmm.
choose wherever they want to go. Oh, this environment is not right for me. Can go for other jobs.
Yeah.
So that actually boils down to, like you mentioned, creating the right environment for the employee. So that's what I meant by creating an amazing employee experience. Because like beyond salary, because you cannot compete on that, right? What do you offer as an employee for your people? So it usually relates back to growth, because the kind of people that we hire, right, when we interview them,
Yeah.
we rarely go for like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to like secure a job with good pay. We always look
Mm.
for, I want growth, I want to learn new things, I want to be challenged. So we look for this kind of people, and we set up an environment. I mean, like from HR, we try to set it as best as we can to nurture this kind of like environment where you value growth and learning as well. But 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 trying to balance it with keeping them on their toes so they are not complacent, means that they don't feel like, oh, I learn as much as I can,
Yeah.
I don't feel challenged anymore. So trying to, it's a balancing act. Yeah. So and then to the second part of that question, right? How do you then like build this good kind of an environment where trust is cultivated, right? So I think like trust is essentially the single most important thing in a working
Yes.
relationship. That's
True.
why whenever I personally like bring on board a new hire for my team, right? I will set I will sit with the new hire and I'll say, okay, let's spend the first month building trust with each other. Because you don't have trust, right? You don't you miss out on lot of things. Things will not be shared. So
Yes.
in building trust, you need to know the actual human beyond the surface. Especially when you work from home, right? When you remote working, you see people from like the screen. So you actually
True.
have to get to know the person behind the screen and what is it
Yes.
like as a person. So that person feels safe. And I always encourage our people to say, okay, you should always voice out your mistake. You
Mm-hmm.
should always voice out about whatever problems that you are facing. Um, the point of like working in a team, right? You have to solve problems together. If you want to solve problems on your own, might as well be a freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
Don't don't work in
Correct.
a team.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so yeah, so solve problems together, build trust. Because like I always say to our people also, if you don't have problems, that's a problem. Means that
Yeah.
you don't feel safe enough to say that you have new challenges that you are facing. So
Mm-hmm.
and then again back to the senior leadership actually championing the culture, because like whatever you see your leaders is doing is what you in your mind, right, unconsciously
Mm-hmm.
think it's okay. So for example, if you see your manager maybe like do something dishonest, oh, I think like, oh, okay, maybe this is an accepted culture within the company. So
Yes.
um yeah, yeah, so that's why I mentioned senior leadership is actually you need to have one that is very strong in terms of championing the culture and
True.
creating a safe environment where people feel comfortable to share their mistake and take ownership. I
Yes.
think like a lot of like employers need to realize and to welcome mistakes because it's part of learning, right? So yeah, have more regular check-ins with your people. Check in with them as a person beyond like okay, what's the status of this task? What's the status of this project? So beyond that, like okay, is there any challenges that you face? Do you have like any specific coaching that you want? I guess like in my as the people person in I mean as the person who take care of the people department in Omnilytics, I always remind the managers, please, do your check-ins, do your one-on-ones, but don't only discuss, progress and task
Yeah.
completion. You have to get to know your people so that, trust building can happen, and then you can get like, the true values, the true gist of the person.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that check in
Mm.
because but not check in meaning that don't ask for hey, how you doing?
Yeah,
Is
no.
that the task finished or not? Right.
No.
Check in the sense like yeah, I agree with you, Miss Rilla, because this is what we need to practice. Not only integrity, it's not only about being honest, having a trustworthy from each other. Meaning that checking in the sense that okay, I need to know what is going on with my people. Are you okay? Especially for those staff. Okay lah. Okay,
Mm.
you just came back from the hospital due to COVID. Is there okay? Is there anything that I can support you? So that's
Mm.
about the checking in. Not like my test
Correct.
finish or not? Finish your
No,
deadline or not?
those are programs
That
progress.
means you create another more pressure. But
Yeah.
that's what normally happens in our environment. And another
Yeah.
one that you also mentioned that will bring to our next question is employee engagement, and also
Mm,
to provide the employee experience in order at the end, how do you ensure that okay they will stay with us, okay we preach what we actually say. All right, okay, so we have two questions here from is one is from Miss Katie. Okay, she
mm,
asked about interview session. Yes, how do you think that what is the role of integrity during the interview of the employees, or what kind of interview questions that lah, because we are
mm,
dealing with a different a background of candidates, okay, and different personalities. So what are the main part of integrity that HR should play when it comes to
mm,
the interviewing session of the employees?
mm.
What are your opinion?
My opinion, right? I mean, like, okay, first of all, I want to start with, you can set up a lot of like interview questions around or whatever processes around recruitment or hiring that you want. But integrity is
Mm-hmm.
actually very hard to gauge during interview
Yeah,
because like people can talk,
true.
right? And during interview, maybe if that person is good in selling themselves, then
Yes.
get hired. Then suddenly something happened, misconduct happened, then you have to let go. I think in the first place you have to set the right expectation in terms of hiring. So I always believe that no one can be really perfect at hiring, regardless HR, regardless of if you're the hiring manager, hiring team, right?
Mm. Correct.
All organizations, all companies make hiring mistakes. What you need to be good at is not about. I mean, like you need to be good at hiring, but you should also need to be really good at determining what to do when a mishire happens.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to assess in terms of, okay, this is a hiring mistake. What can I do about it? So if it's more of a competency technical, that's something that you can actually coach and train the person, then you continue to do that. But it's more of a moral issue, right? You really need to be. I'm going to be very blunt. You need to be very good in terminating the employee because when you harbor, okay, that's so bad. But when you have like a mishire, right? It's
Yeah.
actually not so much of an impact of the person who's doing the misconduct. It actually has like a greater impact towards the rest of the team. Because somebody needs to like, clean the mess or somebody have to
Ah,
like shoulder the burden, right? So actually whenever I have this approach whenever I need
mm-hmm.
to meet someone, it's actually I want to protect the rest of the team. Not really, beyond like whatever approach or whatever decision I'm making towards the person that I need to let go.
Yeah.
I think
Correct.
people need to understand this. But to answer the question, because like there's nothing at all that you can do within hiring process that to gauge. Like I mentioned, I practice competency based interview, and I use the STAR method. Where you ask specific events in the past, so you don't settle for a could or a would answer. So a lot of times, right, when you ask question around, okay, tell me about like one of the mistake that you did in the past. What was the
Mm.
mistake situation? What
Yes.
so I always never settle for if the candidate said like this. Oh, actually, whenever I made a mistake, I would go to my manager and I would highlight, and then I would correct it, and then I would implement. So how listen to how many times the word would is being said there. So actually, don't settle for those. I will actually
Mm-hmm.
ask you give an actual example of the mistake that you did in the past.
Mm.
So, like I mentioned before, also, past behavior indicates, it's a good indicator for future behavior. So,
Yes, correct.
people who say, oh, I actually made this mistake when I was like working as blah blah blah, and this is how I corrected it. This was the result, and this is what I implemented to make sure that the mistake doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, question
Mm-hmm.
around mistake, you can ask question around mistake. You can ask question around, if something that's bothering you. So if something's bothering you, right, means that there's a conflict between your inner self and what's happening outside. So you
I
see
see.
something that not, maybe not good for the company or not good for the environment, the
Mm-hmm.
work environment, right? So the bravery of you actually acting upon your feeling of bothered, being bothered by the situation. So
Mm-hmm.
those are the sample of questions that you can ask to gauge, to give kind of like give an idea about like the person's integrity. But I won't say that it's 100% effective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True. But at least we try to work it out lah, in the sense of putting our
correct.
effort to be better,
Yeah,
especially like you said that HR also is sort of like how do marketing recruit
correct,
students, how does marketing recruit potential customers to buy your
correct,
product. So in
correct.
HR also, how do you recruit a candidate is how do you see, and then how do you ensure that at the end you make a firm, a sound decision that okay, this is the correct, that means like you said just
Mm,
now, to find a correct or right people is not that easy, and also to teach and practice integrity is not yet that easy as well, which is a very
yes.
good point, but at least we put our effort. Okay, there
And,
is one question also from Miss Razia. Okay, you can see that a good question.
mm,
I think this is most of the employees as well, and not in all companies. We can see what is happening. Okay, in terms
mm,
of the employment, the workforce, the effect from the salary. Okay, how
mm,
transparent? Okay, how transparent should human resource and top management be with the staff, especially when it comes to repayment of deducted salary post the pandemic? Yes, this is always the issue, always the question that we always argue when it
mm,
comes to affected employees who have been deducted the salary. So from your views, Miss Rilla,
mm.
how can you handle or, how do you see this question? What can
This
the HR and management do for it?
That's a really good question. But I think
Yeah.
we need to address this.
Mm, true.
It really boils down again to the kind of like senior leadership that you have, because like a lot of the time, right? The perception towards HR is, I always say that people always overestimated the power that HR have. But mostly, I think like 99% of the time, right, we are guided by something. We are guided by the books. We are guided by what the
Yes.
senior leadership
True.
actually wants to shape, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I said, it's very important for you to have, okay, as a company, it's very important for you to have a senior leadership team. As an
Mm-hmm.
employer, or something that, when you want to look for an employer, right, one of the most single important thing that you need to factor in terms of your decision making, whether you want to work for a certain company or not, is to assess
Mm-hmm.
the senior leadership team, like in terms of how they conducted themselves. Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to share about how Omnilytics did it. My company did it. So we actually
Mm-hmm.
said, we are very transparent. Say that okay, this is why we have to implement some cost cutting measure. We show a graph, we share, and it's a true reflection of what our financial statement is. This
Mm.
was our target. This is what we achieved, and then we be clear in terms of how we are going to review in terms of okay, when we want to reinstate, we tell our people that okay, we are going to do quarterly review, so they don't have to wonder, oh, they don't have to like ask me every month is my salary is paid today or this
Yeah.
month, right? I always say that okay,
Normally that
yeah,
happens on employees. Salary okay or not?
yeah. So you have to communicate very clearly in terms of managing people's
Mm-hmm.
expectations, right? Say if you
Yes.
want to do I mean, you can do monthly review, but what I did, because our reviews are quarterly, so I said that okay, we review salary reinstatement every quarter. Say
I
for
see.
example, salary adjustment or whatever, and then give we give like people clearer milestone. So in order for us to enjoy something, to get like something of a benefit, be it in salary, be it in any type of compensation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It actually
Yes.
ties to the financial stability of the company, because everything costs something. Even like to award people leave, it actually cost the company something. So it relates back to how the company is doing financially, and in terms of whether management should be transparent about it or not. I think
Yeah.
management should, because if you hide the fact that oh, whatever financial situation that you are not in, right? Then you kind of like foster in employees mind, or the employees are free to like make whatever assumption they want. Oh, maybe the company have money, but they purposely don't give me my salary back. Uh, because like in the first place, they don't even know. They might see like, oh, the company makes sales, but they don't usually know what is the overhead expense of the company.
True.
Like maybe they make sales, that's only revenue, but that's not profit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think management should communicate more regularly in terms of like financial status of the company. But I do understand management's concern in terms of like sharing because it will be rocking the boat. So it's also an art of balancing whether okay, how do you communicate a certain situation? Say for example, okay, this is our financial situation right now, but
Mm-hmm.
this is our strategy, this is our plan for us. I'm going to like be sharing. I'll be using a situational case like say for example this company is not it's not doing okay, but just like and this employee and they have like employees wondering about oh when my salary is going to be reinstated, but the company might not be able to I guess like afford it. So in this situation, then yes, I would encourage management to share more and be more honest and open about their situation, so that the employee would understand also. Say for example, okay, this we are not meeting targets. This is our strategy. Then the employees will know, oh, okay, this strategy actually helps us to reach our target. Then I will get my salary back, whatever the pay cut amount is. So again, communication, transparency, and openness is very important. But yeah, that's why depending on the type of management that you have also, whether the company value transparency or not is another issue. But from a HR perspective, this is it, like
Yeah.
we really value openness and communication. It also make
Yes.
HR's job easier because like it's there
But
already, so the information is there already, so you don't have to like
mm,
um, manage so much in terms of
yes.
yeah, employees expectation.
It's just that how do you manage that information? That's yeah, I
Right.
agreed with you, Miss Rilla,
Mm,
because in order for you to have a sound management system or practice, you need also to be transparent in such a way that you need to
mm,
gain the trust from the employees. So there are things that you need to convince these employees that okay, we have this situation, all right, your salary may be affected, but we will,
mm.
ensure to repay or instate in the future. So then you come up with a strategy rather than just oh we're not making money, you're making lose loss. But what can you do? I agree with that. You have to be transparent in such a way that depending on your management style and the leadership skill that you have,
Mm, mm.
because yeah, again you back to the previous questions, employees have choice. If they think that
Correct.
okay lah, my management is like this,
Don't
HR
care
also
about.
does not practice integrity, I just go away.
Yeah,
Especially
true.
to the younger generations, what the expectations is very high, so we do not
Correct.
know what they might want to look for that. Okay,
Yeah.
another one from Miss Zhu. Okay, I agree. Okay, Miss Nita and Miss Rilla, to gain trust and at the same time yes, loyalty. Yeah,
Mm,
gain trust and loyalty to the company, that is what we're going to discuss also. No trust, no loyalty, of course lah. How good the
mm,
company may be, how high technology, but if there is no trust, of course no loyalty. And
mm,
this will also lead to the heightened over to the company. So the question is that what are the approaches or strategies that we can use to gain the trust from people, especially from the team, or if you're working in a big team,
mm,
because yeah, you mentioned also the teamwork. So how do you gain the trust so that trust will lead to the loyalty to the company,
mm.
especially when you work in a very big number of team people?
Right. Right. It's a bit more challenging with bigger teams because with bigger teams, right, it's very hard for you to like to get to know other people because you don't work closely with the person,
True.
right? So that's why I say senior leadership, and in case of bigger teams, bigger company, they need to have strong middle management as well, which from my observations, right, is a lot of the challenges that face by employees in Malaysia. I always see like strong leadership, and then like very highly enthusiastic, highly energetic, more of the individual contributors, but the middle management is the one who's like suffering, or
Yeah.
maybe like have lots of gaps. So
Sometimes that's the issue also, kan?
yeah, a lot of the times that's the issue, not sometimes.
Yes.
So, so I'm going to share one of the employee engagement survey that I read in the past. Right, it's always
Mm-hmm.
and it's a consistent pattern. So if
Mm-hmm.
you group employees together in a big company, right? So you have the senior leadership, middle management, and then individual contributor, right? The graph is always like C shape, where you have like high engagement through for the senior leadership, high engagement for individual contributors, but lower middle management
I
engagement.
see.
Why is that happening? So a lot of times they feel that middle managers don't have enough support because it's actually tough. You have to manage down, you have to manage your subordinates, you also have to manage up. Means that you have to take care of like, okay, what do I communicate with my senior leadership?
Mm-hmm.
How do I manage their expectations? So it's actually a really tough role to play. And HR usually, what we can do is like try to create sessions. I don't want to use the word training session, because like
Mm-hmm.
usually training, I want to deviate from like the usual corporate training where you learn about like presentation skill, you learn about
Mm.
processes within certain
Yes.
departments or whatever, right? While that is important, right? But what actually you need to train your middle management is how to coach people, how to communicate expectations clearly. That's not happening frequent enough. A lot of times, right? Employees want growth. Or I feel like I'm due for promotion, but the manager will always say, "Oh, there's some gap that this employee needs to work on," but those gaps are usually not communicated. So I always say that you have to work both ways. Employees, you have to share with your manager. Say, for example, oh, actually, I want to be promoted by this time next year. What can I do to make sure that I meet all the expectations that you have for the next level? Manager need to also say that actually this is your areas of improvement. This is what I suggest you to do to work on those areas. So you are clearer in terms of, okay. A lot of times I see that employees feel like, oh, I'm due. I know I'm well deserved of this promotion, and a lot of times managers doesn't feel the same. So these gaps needs to be addressed and needs to be communicated clearly. But you don't say, "Oh, you're too junior for that role." Don't say that. Show them the light of the end of the tunnel. So this is what you need to work on. This is how you achieve that competency. And let's reassess back in whatever timeline. So in 6 months, let's reassess where you are and whether how far along have you progressed in terms of getting that promotion that you want. So encourage that. So that's what I usually tell managers. And if you look at Omnilytics managers training program, that's what we train our managers on, like how to have conversation around accountability, how to have conversations around brainstorming, for example. We place so much importance in terms of having high quality dialogue. If you think of it, right, dialogue is essentially the operating system of any team. You don't have good dialogue, so it's just like saying or whatever you want to say in your mind, right? It wouldn't work. So you need to build a team that's very good in communicating, so that you I'm sorry, I forgot the yeah, Miss Zhu, Miss Zhu's question. So in bigger team, each sub unit need to have very good communication skill. And again, my initial point also, get to know the person, get to know the individual behind the screen, beyond the surface. You know, for you to foster trust.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I can see that. Meaning that to also practice integrity is to have a good communication skill, not just giving instruction. So what we can see in some of companies, okay, Miss Rilla, that yes, it is still important that the middle management plays the part as to
Hmm,
ensure that okay, you are the one who link with the people, you are the one who are close to the people below you, even
correct.
operative level, even clerical level, even
Hmm,
cleaners. So one
correct.
way is to communicate and also include them. Okay, like what you
Correct.
say, when you have a dialogue, it's not just like, okay, I want you to do this, blah, blah, blah. But then, showing emotional grudges also is not a good way to practice a
Yeah,
sense of
definitely.
trust, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in your opinion, like just my 2 cents, in your opinion, is it like, do you still believe in a practice that, okay, I'm a manager,
Mm,
okay, and then whatever that you need to do is based on what I give you. So you are
mm,
still practicing this, stick approach, you
mm.
know, giving, giving. But like you said, okay, you are still junior, you do not know how to do this, and this is not
Right.
your part. This is blah blah blah. Do you believe in that sense, a stick approach, management style?
Definitely not. Even like when you have to, so being good in communication, right, means also you have to be very good in having delegation,
Mm.
communication, delegation dialogue. So it's very different. Accountability dialogue is different. Delegation dialogue is different. So be very clear. So it's not saying simple one liner. Hey, can you do this? You have to communicate also, like especially if it's not something that's, I guess, like your usual task. So you need to help the employee see, okay, what is it for? What the actual question that I'm trying to solve. So I always encourage my team, right? Okay, whenever I'm not clear, please ask me for context. I guess sharing context is very important. So whenever I ask, right, I will share, okay, what actually I'm trying to achieve, what are the timelines like, what are the impacts. Simple question like, even like, okay, what's the number of headcount? Can you give me the number of headcount by end of the day? uh, what does it mean, like what am I trying to answer? So I always give context. Actually, I wanted to plan for an event for the entire company. I'm going to need a headcount number, for everyone including interns, and where they are based at geographically, so I can make my decision in terms of what type of activities that I'm going to conduct. And this is part of our OKR, which also equivalent to a KPI. So this is part of our KPI in terms of driving an X amount of engagement score. So that's how you should, as a manager, communicate whenever you want to delegate. So it's not a simple one-liner. And the second part of that question, right? I know that managers always have um, blind spot in terms of what's on the plate of their team member. So because we always like delegate, but we lost sight. Okay, if the things on my team's members plate is an okay size or not. I always practice. Okay, if especially if there's something urgent, right, that I need to get delivered. I would say to my team member, so say for example, his name is Ali. Ali, can you help me with this? I need this by end of the day because this is for what. If I ask you to prioritize this, what do you need to deprioritize? Or what do you need to postpone? So always follow up with this question. If you are an employee who's working with a manager who don't have like this approach, right? You can make it two-way. You can always ask your manager back. Okay, when do you need this by? Or I need this by end of the day. Then you share with your manager. Actually, I'm doing this. Can you help me deprioritize so I can work on this task that you give me? So don't, as an employee, you don't have always to like accept, but it's a two-way relationship where you have to work with each other and remind your manager that there's other tasks. You are my manager, help me prioritize my task list. It cannot be, and managers also don't have, you cannot have like unrealistic expectations, in terms of your team's productivity. Be reasonable. In the end, you want to take care of your people. You don't want them to get burnt out. You want to create a good working environment so you can get them more engaged. When you get them more engaged, you get higher performance.
Yeah, that is the best view from you, Miss Rilla. That means, like, what did you say just now?
Hmm.
You don't just simply go to, okay, in order for you to create such a very harmony, like we can say harmony
Hmm.
environment, two-way communication, do not just simply put expectation, or do not, yeah, we need to practice to say, I'm so sorry, it's not that I don't want to do, but due to the
Hmm.
priority. But it is difficult, for some
Yeah, it is.
employees. We know that it is difficult. Okay lah, boss, we do. Okay lah. Then at the back, oh my God, here and there, you put the pressure on other people. But in
Yeah.
reality, yes, we need to have that sense, like, okay, you know that you have some things to do. Okay, it
Yeah.
is not that we don't want or decline to assist on other part, but
Mm.
how do you set the priority, and how
Mm.
does these managers or middle line managers create such a very harmonious environment, and also in the sense that two-way communication. I think
Yes.
that actually has explained on the last question, in order for
Mm.
it to create a strong engagement and commitment,
Mm.
like what you say, explain just now, in order to create. So in your practice in your company, Miss Rilla, how do you encourage engagement and commitment towards the employees based on your
I,
experience in the organization?
as HR, right, what I do, or what actually, as a common HR professionals need to do, is actually deputize your managers. They are your ambassador, the company's ambassador, in terms of culture, in terms of values, in terms of creating the kind of like employee experience you want to create. So deputize your managers. So you need to equip them with enough support, enough material, so they can actually execute. In Omnilytics, we always say, when during our orientation, right? Okay, every month we will have, you will have one-on-one meeting with your manager. I always say this sentence, don't use your one-on-one to discuss progress in tasks, or limit yourself to that only. You should also discuss your progress and your development, any challenges that you face, because you shouldn't be ashamed, you shouldn't be embarrassed of, if you're facing challenges. There's nothing embarrassing about that. The challenges are good. It's what pushes you, right? So that's what I'm trying to encourage at Omnilytics. So managers should be open in terms of having discussion around the human that's in the team. But you also need to balance, yeah. Means that you want to create a harmonious environment, but not to the extent where it feels like a family, because you are not a family. A team, right, is a set of people who work together through a common goal. When you set up an environment where it's like very very family like, it put a barrier in terms of what you can communicate, especially around performance improvement. Is there any like areas of improvement? Because you cannot, you have like that relationship, or he feels like a brother or a sister to me, hence I'm going to help back. So you want to create an environment where it's progressive enough. When people receive feedback, they know it's for their own good. You don't sugarcoat. um, I'm going to say, stay away with companies who say, no, we are like family. Because when you have that, right, when you have someone's not performing, it's going to be very hard. Because, like, say for example, you work with your, in your family, right? If your sister is lacking, you don't terminate your sister.
True.
True, right? So don't think yourself as a family. Think of yourself, a group of like-minded people, a group of smart
Mhm.
people who works towards achieving something of value, creating a better world out there. So that's how you should view your team, as a manager, especially.
Yeah, maybe in outside of the working time, yeah, you can say, I'm your
Yeah,
sisters, I'm
right.
your brothers,
Yeah,
let's sharing. But
correct.
yeah, I can see that,
Yeah.
because some of us, Miss Rila, we have this culture that
Mm,
we are family.
mm,
So when someone is making a mistake, when someone does not perform to the standard, oh my
right.
god, if I
Yeah.
try to talk to him or her personally,
Mm,
then he will make some grudges
yeah.
with us after that. So it is not a good environment. Yeah,
Agree.
we agree with Ms. Zhu. Also, harmony working environment, and Ms. Rila, you mentioned harmonious working environment is not easy to implement if you don't have openness, trust, and also I call that a good communication. All right.
Mm,
So we come to the end. It's nearly the time already. So we have a lot to discuss actually in terms of this integrity practice
yeah.
in the organization, and a lot of question in terms of how do you practice integrity in the appraisal. What do you
Mm,
think the integrity in the effect of integrity? So in a conclusion, integrity is actually a part that you have to value, and not only just to believe, you have to value and practice. All right.
correct.
So Ms. Rila, last but not least, okay, we know that we have diploma in human resource program. So how
Mm,
do what is your advice, your tips for those who would like to go to the career in the human resource area? What are their prospects? Because They
Mm.
need to know that, okay, after I graduated, what can I go? What can I do in the human resource line? So what
Mm.
can you give some of the guidelines for them?
Actually, HR is a very vast field. There's quite a wide spectrum. You can go to more of a generalist role. You can also go for a specialized path. So within HR, right? So there are rewards management, there are employee engagement, there are talent acquisition. So you can talent engagement. So you can, and there's new things called HR analytics. So you can choose to be specialized in this path if you want to build a deeper expertise
Mm-hmm.
in terms of those areas. Um, and a lot of the company practice like this kind of like structure within the HR team. So they have like center of expertise where they, each team will work on different specialization or different functions.
Mm-hmm.
Where they strategize on the framework, the tools around to facilitate things like that, and more of the generalist path where you kind of like took whatever framework from the center of expertise and drive it for the people. So HR generalist is more of a jack of all trades. So you have to have a good knowledge in terms of all the areas, and you have to be a good communicator. Not only that, you also need to have a good emotional intelligence, because you are dealing with people, and people are
Correct.
people are creature with emotions, right? It's not the same
Correct.
as working with machines or working with computers, right? Where you can easily troubleshoot, not
Mm-hmm.
easily, but you can, like, there's more structured way of troubleshooting. But
Mm-hmm.
when working with people, there's always a story. There's always, it's like peeling layers and layers of that person, right? So you have to understand about how do you work with people, how do you help them with their challenges. And I would say you will need to have empathy over sympathy, because you are balancing both, right? You are balancing the
Yes.
employees interests, you are balancing the companies and customers interests, right? So you need to have empathy, but shouldn't have up to the point where you feel sympathy on either side. Don't
Mm.
be too sympathetic to the employee, don't be too sympathetic to the company. Have empathy for both, and then you decide your way forward. So that's one thing that you have to bear in mind if you want to continue in a career in HR. But it is a rewarding career, for at least for me, to be able to see the people that I work with grow within the company. So I guess like that's where, as a HR professional, that what motivates me. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the point because I'm
Mm.
also in the background of human resource management,
Right.
majoring in human resource. So I can see that we are
Yeah.
dealing with people such a unique creature that compared to others
Correct.
system or machine. All right,
Yeah.
guys. So you have heard what Miss Rilla has viewed on the prospect of the human resource career. So grab your opportunity, and also for participants, outsiders, public who have the interest to know more about the program of the MAIC, so feel free to browse through our website, maic.edu.my. All right. And thank you, Ms. Rilla, once again for your time, for your opportunity, for us to share the views, the points about the issue that we are talking about just now. So the time is very much jealous of us. A lot to
Yeah.
discuss, and hopefully that in the future we can meet again to discuss
Oh,
on the other issue for your sharing expertise, and we wish you all the best in your career as well as stay safe. All right. So thank you for the academicians, all right, MAIC staff, supporters, okay, students as well, viewers, okay, for your time as well to share our opinions, to watch and listen to our discussion. So
mm.
please stay safe. Okay, we are still in the war of fighting the COVID. For those who have completed their vaccination, still stay safe as well. Okay, Miss Sheila, stay safe. You and family take good care. And thank you all. Bye bye. Have a good day and have a good weekend. See you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.